Zelda's May 12th release date is growing closer by the day, which means very soon we're going to be shocked at some of the new details Nintendo provides. At the next Nintendo Direct or trailer drop, rest assured minds will be blown. You think you're prepared? You've played Breath of the Wild, you know what to expect? You can't be impressed by a Switch game anymore? Well, let me ask you this. When have we ever seen a Zelda game that was similar to the games that came before it? Never. Think about it. Never ever has this happened, which makes me 100% confident that we are in for some huge surprises during the upcoming months. We'll soon be getting a better sense of the game's size. Breath of the Wild was huge, and we can safely assume Tears of the Kingdom is going to be even bigger. We know that Link is going to be taking to the skies in this game. We've already seen the floating islands we know are going to be filling the skies of Hyrule. So take the size of Breath of the Wild's Hyrule and at least double it, since the full map will be explorable both on the ground and from the skies above. From the trailers, we already have a decent sense of what sky exploration is going to look like in Tears of the Kingdom. This isn't gonna be like Skyward Sword where the sky can feel drab and empty at times. We can clearly see there is going to be stuff floating everywhere. I'm sure the islands will be crawling with hordes of enemies and hidden treasures to find. And we'll be coming across structures like the one we see here in the second trailer, a temple that's clearly housing something. Maybe this game's equivalent to Breath of the Wild's shrines. But it's not just exploring the sky that's going to give the game even more depth than the original. It's also the potential for airborne or sky combat. It's likely that while we're exploring the skies of Hyrule, enemies will be hunting Link down. Whether that's winged, bird-like creatures like the one that's already been spotted in Trailer 3, or bokoblin archers on a nearby sky island. Bokoblins or Lizalfos could also mount winged creatures to chase us around the skies, or could use another type of aircraft. There are endless types of flying enemies that could potentially approach Link while airborne. But if they're going to be enemies that fly, how will Link retaliate? We really only see him free falling through the skies. And while gliding was a big part of Breath of the Wild, Link needing to hold on to the paraglider makes combat pretty limited. I think the key to airborne combat is going to be this flying machine, what many call the Stone Bird. If we look here, we see that crucially, Link stands up on this thing, and there's enough room on its flat surface for him to move around a bit. I think I know how this thing is going to work. We won't be able to use the control stick and fly it around. Instead, we'll be able to mark a path for it on the map. Placing a marker on the map will cause it to start gliding automatically to that location. Using the Stone Bird will essentially turn movement into an auto-scroller, but not actually having to worry about movement will allow us to freely survey the ground below and freely engage in combat with airborne enemies if necessary. While riding, if anything on the surface piques your interest, then you can freely jump off the Stone Bird with the paraglider to check it out. And it has a flat surface for a very specific reason, making it so Link can walk around on it, just like he's on land, which will allow him to use weapons like swords and hammers, which might be difficult to use if he was riding on the back of a bird or something. And who said the skies were going to be the only way to expand Hyrule's map? What if there was an alternate version of the map Link could cycle between? You know, like a Link to the Past style Dark World that would, along with the sky, double the size of the map again. It wouldn't have to be a Dark World, but any sort of alternate dimension would be right on brand for the Zelda series. I think in Tears of the Kingdom, the dimensional shift is actually going to be between two different periods in time. In trailers, we can see Link with two distinctly different appearances. One that looks like our standard Link from Breath of the Wild, and then one with the long flowing hair and more primitive clothing, who I'll call Link from the distant past. The trailers are going out of their way to show Link in these two unique styles, and I think that's for good reason. I feel like we could be able to switch control between Link and his distant ancestor at any time. If you come across an area of regular Hyrule that looks particularly interesting but can't find a way to interact with it in the present, then travel back in time and check out the same spot. For those who played A Link to the Past, this type of concept will no doubt be familiar. I think Link might be able to drop portals that will instantly zip him into the past. I'm talking about a seamless transition, even faster than using the magic mirror. Something that's gonna be really shocking and impressive. Something close to the instant rift transport in Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. This sort of thing lines up with a recent patent Nintendo file that deals with the game sound adjustment when a character instantly warps between 2 points. A mechanic like this revealed in the next trailer would shock the world. And if I'm being honest, in an immersive, open world like Tears of the Kingdom, if we're going to be going to another dimension at all, travel there is going to need to be instantaneous. We can't be having a small cutscene or load screen in between. It needs to happen right away so the game can remain immersive. And something like that Ratchet & Clank style portal jumping is exactly the kind of innovation that's needed here. Speaking of innovation, we can't forget about the new powers and abilities we've already seen. Sending objects backwards on their path in time, Link becoming a water droplet and traveling through solid objects. Compare these new ones to the Sheikah Slate powers in the original game. Those powers of stasis, ice blocks, etc. were definitely creative, but now look tame in comparison. These new abilities are probably going to be part of Sheikah Slate 2.0, whatever that will be. And I guarantee you, we haven't seen all of the new abilities that Link will have. The possibilities are way too wide open to really speculate on, but whatever these new abilities are, I have a feeling they'll all be connected to this green energy we're shown so much in the trailer footage so far. Link will probably be wielding more experimental weapons in this game too. For example, trailer number 2 sees him using this flamethrower arm cannon in battle with this enemy that hangs from the ceiling. This suggests that weapon variety will expand far past the swords, axes, hammers, bows, and wands that we're used to. Every 3D Zelda game before this has innovated the series combat in a particular way, and I fully expect Tears of the Kingdom to follow suit. Shrines are not yet confirmed for Tears of the Kingdom. Since shrines were such an important part of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom is going to need its own twist on the concept. I mentioned earlier these temple-like structures on the floating islands could work as this game's shrines, but what I actually think will happen is that a handful of quote-unquote dungeons will be built into the land organically. Think about this for a sec. Imagine how magical it would be to stumble upon a giant fortress dungeon to explore. Think of something like Lome Labyrinth Island from the first game, but even bigger and more complex, filled with puzzles and tough enemies. I want these dungeons to be grueling endeavors. I want to be punished for going where I don't belong too early, but I don't want them to be segmented off. I want them to be built right into the world, so finding them and exploring them feels organic. There could be some in the sky, some underwater, and some underground. Imagine finding a canyon or seam in the earth only to drop down to find a vast underground tunnel system. We've already seen some cave shots from Tears of the Kingdom, so it's not crazy to imagine we'll be heading underground in this game too. I'm predicting that in the place of the divine beasts from the first game, we'll need to beat 7 of these dungeons placed around the map and collect all 7 of the Tears of the Kingdom, which will be guarded by a boss inside them. Once all 7 tears are obtained, we can then fly up to the floating castle and take on the evil force there as our 8th and final dungeon of the game. If there are complaints about Breath of the Wild, it's about how it doesn't exactly feel like a traditional Zelda game. I think implementing a set of dungeons is a big step toward addressing these complaints. And as we see more and more things get revealed about the game, I could see certain mechanics starting to come back that would make Tears of the Kingdom feel a bit more like a traditional Zelda than Breath of the Wild does. For example, I could imagine a hookshot allowing for fast-flying Spider-Man type traversal of this open world. And something like weighted iron boots could allow for easier traversal in sections of the game happen to be underwater. They could also add things like the boomerang or the mirror shield, which could really help expand the types of puzzles we're able to solve. Possibilities for Tears of the Kingdom are quite literally endless, but the team is going to need to walk a fine line between the unrestricted style of Breath of the Wild and adding new mechanics that might overcomplicate or oversimplify things. Aonuma himself mentioned this very problem years ago in an interview about the game. There's no more hyped game in the industry at the moment than Tears of the Kingdom, and I think I can speak for all of us in saying I can't wait to see more and experience the magic all over again.